was a crime that shocked Beverly Hills, turning a picture-perfect family into the center of one of the most infamous murder cases in American history. On August 20, 1989, police arrived at the opulent Menendez mansion to find a scene of unimaginable horror. Jose and Kitty Menendez, a powerful Hollywood executive, and his glamorous wife were found shot to death in their living room. The brutality was staggering. Jose had been shot point blank in the back of the head, while Kitty's body was riddled with bullet wounds, suggesting she had tried to flee before being gunned down. The crime scene was so gruesome and chaotic that police initially believed it to be a professional hit, but the truth would turn out to be far more shocking than anyone could have imagined. Months later, the Menendez brothers, 21-year-old Lyle and 18-year-old Erik, were arrested and charged with their parents' murders. What followed was a sensational trial that captivated the nation. Tales of abuse, greed, and betrayal unfolded in a courtroom drama that blurred the lines between victim and villain. But behind the headlines, whispers of an even darker story began to emerge. A story of conspiracy, corruption, and a sinister underworld that Jose Menendez may have been entangled in. What if the Menendez murders weren't just a family tragedy? What if they were part of something much bigger and far more sinister? When Erik Menendez walked into the Beverly Hills Police Department in 1990, he was pale, trembling, and visibly distraught. Sitting across from detectives, he broke down and confessed to the unthinkable. "We did it, we killed them." But what he revealed next turned the case on its head. Erik claimed the murders weren't about greed or money, they were about survival. According to Erik, his father, Jose Menendez, was a sadistic predator who had sexually abused both brothers for years. Their mother, Kitty, allegedly knew about the abuse but did nothing to stop it. Erik described a childhood of unimaginable horror behind the gates of their $5 million Beverly Hills mansion. His voice cracked as he recounted how Jose had controlled every aspect of their lives, using threats and violence to maintain his power. "He told us if we ever told anyone, he'd kill us," Erik said, tears streaming down his face. But here's where things get even darker. Erik wasn't the one who first brought up the abuse. He said it was Lyle, his older brother, who had confronted him one night in tears. "He told me he couldn't take it anymore," Erik said, "that we had to do something before Dad killed us, or worse." According to Erik, the night of August 20, 1989 was the breaking point. Earlier that evening, Erik claimed their father had loaded a gun earlier that day, leading them to believe their lives were in immediate danger. "We thought he was going to kill us that night," Erik said. "We had to strike first." In a desperate act of self-defense, the brothers grabbed shotguns they had purchased weeks earlier and stormed into the living room where Jose and Kitty were watching TV. What followed was one of the most infamous crimes in American history, a brutal, chaotic scene that left both parents dead. But the aftermath was equally shocking. Instead of fleeing, the brothers staged the house to look like a mob hit, discarding the shotguns on Mulholland Drive and attempting to cover their tracks. Over the next few months, they embarked on a wild spending spree, buying Rolex watches, luxury cars, and courtside Lakers tickets. To the public, it looked like a case of cold-blooded killers motivated by greed, but Erik insisted their spending wasn't about money, it was about freedom. "We'd never been allowed to make our own choices," he said. "We were finally living for ourselves." By the time the trial began in 1993, the Menendez brothers had become household names. The courtroom was packed with reporters and the case was broadcast live on national television. The prosecution painted the brothers as entitled, greedy sociopaths who had killed their parents to inherit their fortune. But the defense told a very different story, portraying the brothers as victims of years of horrific abuse. The The trial was a media circus filled with explosive testimonies and shocking revelations. The brothers' defense team argued that they had been driven to the edge by fear and trauma, convinced their father was about to kill them. But the prosecution dismissed their claims as a desperate attempt to avoid responsibility, pointing to their lavish spending spree as evidence of their true motive. As the trial dragged on, a new twist emerged, one that would cast a shadow over the entire case. In the middle of the trial, investigators discovered a secret audio tape in the office of Dr. Jerome Oziel, the brothers' therapist. On the tape, Lyle Menendez admitted to the murders, but he also dropped a chilling detail about their father. According to the tape, Jose Menendez wasn't just a controlling and abusive patriarch. He was also deeply involved in something illegal. Lyle mentioned cryptic phrases like the tapes and the deal in Miami, hinting at connections to a dark underworld that extended far beyond their family. The prosecution dismissed this as a desperate attempt to shift blame, but independent investigators began to dig, and what they uncovered was far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. On the surface, Jose Menendez appeared to be the embodiment of the American dream, a Cuban immigrant who came to the US with nothing. He had worked tirelessly to climb the corporate ladder, eventually becoming the CEO of Live Entertainment, a Hollywood powerhouse that distributed films and music. But behind the scenes, Jose was allegedly building an empire that was anything but legal. Former colleagues described him as ruthless and paranoid, a man who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. And as investigators began to untangle his financial web, a troubling pattern began to emerge. After the murders, forensic accountants discovered that Jose had millions of dollars stashed in offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and Switzerland. These accounts weren't just for tax evasion, they were tied to a series of questionable transactions. One of the most shocking discoveries was a $2.5 million deposit linked to a foreign distributor suspected of being a front for ADI drug cartels. According to leaked documents, this distributor wasn't just moving movies, they were allegedly moving cocaine. Jose's role in these transactions is unclear, but one former accountant at Live Entertainment later testified that Jose had intimate knowledge of where the money was coming from and where it was going. In other words, Jose wasn't just a passive participant, he was actively managing the flow of money. Then there was the so-called Miami deal. In the months leading up to his death, Jose had been negotiating with a group of investors based in Miami. According to FBI reports, these investors had ties to organized crime and international drug smuggling rings. One of these investors was Victor Ramirez, a Miami-based financier with a reputation for making problems disappear. Ramirez's name appeared in multiple documents related to Live Entertainment, and investigators believe he was involved in a scheme to use the company as a front for laundering money. Here's the twist. Ramirez disappeared just weeks before the murders. His body was never found, and some believe he was eliminated to keep the details of the deal from coming to light. Perhaps the most damning revelation was the existence of compromising videotapes that Jose allegedly kept hidden in a safe. According to a whistleblower who worked at Live Entertainment, these tapes contained footage of powerful Hollywood executives in compromising situations. The tapes were reportedly used as leverage to secure lucrative deals for Live Entertainment, but they also made Jose a target. He was playing a dangerous game, the whistleblower said. If those tapes ever got out, it would ruin lives. In 2025, a new witness came forward with a chilling claim. On the night of the murders, they saw Jose meeting with a shadowy figure outside the Menendez mansion. The witness described the figure as tall, dressed in a black suit, and driving a dark sedan. They claimed the man handed Jose an envelope before the two exchanged tense words. Who was this man, and what was in the envelope? Could this shadowy figure have played a role in the murders? As more details about Jose's life have come to light, a new theory has begun to take shape. What if the Menendez brothers weren't acting alone? What if they were manipulated into killing their parents by someone else? This theory suggests that Jose's associates may have seen him as a liability and decided to eliminate him. By exploiting the brothers' volatile relationship with their father, they could ensure the crime looked like a family tragedy rather than a calculated hit. As of today, the Menendez brothers remain behind bars, serving life sentences without the possibility of parole. But whispers of a new witness have begun to circulate, someone who claims to have proof of who the shadowy figure outside the mansion was and what was in the envelope he handed to Jose. Could this finally be the smoking gun that unravels the entire case, or will it raise even more questions about the true motive behind the Menendez murders? One thing is certain, in the case of the Menendez brothers, the truth is stranger and darker than fiction. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll explore new evidence, revisit old suspects, and uncover the shocking secrets that could rewrite the story of the Menendez murders forever.